Hello, everyone. Welcome to City Parks Alliance's Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership, or ORLP, Technical Assistance Webinar. I'm Julie Waterman, and I'm the Advocacy Director at City Parks Alliance. I know that everyone attending this webinar is interested in learning how to access federal funding for local park projects, and our goal is to help guide you through that process. City Parks Alliance, with our partners, the National Park Service, National Recreation and Park Association, and National League of Cities, is excited to host this ORLP webinar. If you're interested in continuing education credits for AICP or City Parks Alliance's general CEU offering, look for the follow-up email with instructions on how to claim your credits. A few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. If you have a question, please submit it through the Q&A function. We have National Park Service staff who will be answering some of the questions during the webinar, and then we will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. You might want to wait to post your question until a little later in the webinar to see if it is answered during the presentation. If you missed something, don't worry. A recording and additional ORLP resources will be emailed to all registrants later this week. For those of you that are new to City Parks Alliance, we are the only independent nationwide membership organization solely dedicated to urban parks. Our vision is that everyone in America will have access to high-quality parks and green spaces that are clean, safe, and vibrant. You can visit our website at cityparksalliance.org to learn more about the Alliance and how membership can benefit your organization, including year-round virtual and in-person programming like webinars, peer conversations, workshops, and park study tours, research and resources, our City Park Funding Hub, discounts to our Greater and Greener conference, and more. We also have a Mayors for Parks coalition that advocates for increased federal investment in our nation's city parks. We would love to get your mayor on board. Please contact me for more details. Okay, on to today's program. The ORLP provides grants for recreation projects in cities across the U.S. Congress established the program in 2014 and permanently codified it through the Bipartisan Explore Act in 2025. The National Park Service manages the ORLP, which is funded through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, or LWCF. The grants fund locally led land acquisition, new park development, and the renovation of existing parks, all with the goal of providing Americans access to the outdoors. Since 2014, the ORLP has supported more than 160 projects nationwide, investing $470 million and leveraging an additional $500 million in matching funds. For this application round, the National Park Service has made the process much easier and has more resources than ever to review the applications and administer the grants. We are thrilled to see these new developments. Presenting for the National Park Service is Vanessa Ehrenpreis. Vanessa serves as the Merit Review Manager for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Okay, let's get started. Vanessa, I hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Let me just share my screen and we will get rocking and rolling. And thank you, as always, to CPA for providing this venue. It is great to be with your membership and talk about ORLP, one of the programs that we can all collaborate on. So, as Julie mentioned, my name is Vanessa Ehrenpreis. I am the Merit Review Manager here in LWCF and help run the application review process for ORLP, the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program that we're going to be talking about today. And the goal today is, one, to help you assess your fit for this program, whether it's a good option for some of the projects you may have in the hopper, and two, give you some tips on how to put together a great application. So here's our full agenda. We're going to run through some LWCF basics. Julie already spoke to a couple of things, but we'll give you a little bit of information just for context on the Land and Water Conservation Fund. We'll give an introduction to ORLP as a program, and then we'll really focus most of our time on the nitty-gritty of how you can assess your eligibility for ORLP and the overall application process and best practices. And then we'll end today with some next steps for where you can go for more information if today's webinar was just enough to whet your palate. I do want to start with the caveat that we're going to run through a lot of the introductory information fairly quickly so that we can focus more on the specifics of developing an application. If you feel like you need more of a primer on ORLP, definitely check out our previous webinar through CPA. We've done a couple of webinars through the Trust for Public Land as well that give you more of the just introduction to the program. So that's a great place to start if you haven't already. Okay, well, first things first, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, as Julie mentioned, is this is the program that ORLP operates within. So if you've done an LWCF grant before, ORLP will look very similar. If you haven't and you don't know what LWCF is, that's okay. All you need to know is that it is the largest recreation funder in the United States. We've been operating since 1965, and we give out around $400 million annually in state and local financial assistance, aka grants. So ORLP is one of the programs that we have at our disposal. A little bit of organizational context for you when it comes to LWCF. We are divided into two program areas. So stateside grants, also known as formula grants. If you've worked with LWCF before, it's likely been on that side of the house. That's where states get their annual apportionment and can decide which projects they want to spend. Newer, in the past decade or so, we also have competitive grants. So ORLP is one of those competitive grants that are available on top of formula apportionments. And they're competitive because it's a national competition. So everyone is submitting to see who is going to get our funding in a given year. Regardless of which side of the house you are under, all LWCF grants have a couple of key requirements. One, they have to align with a state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, a SCORP, which is basically a planning document that sets out the state's priorities for what kind of recreation projects they want to fund. Two, all projects have to be maintained and accessible for public recreation in perpetuity, forever. And three, all LWCF awards are dollar for dollar match. So that means we, the Park Service, put up 50% of project costs, and then applicants are responsible for finding that other 50% through other sources. So that's the sea we're swimming in as an LWCF program. Now we can get more into the specifics of ORLP within LWCF, so the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership. We have been around since 2014, and the core goal of ORLP is really to enhance recreation opportunities in urban low-income areas. We get around $125 million per year to further these goals, and we are absolutely thrilled that we now have our new Notice of Funding opportunity out in the world. It's on grants.gov. It was a long wait, but it's fully live in public. So you can go on grants.gov, read our full notice. It is a 5-year notice, which means everything we're talking about today is going to be true for the next 5 years under this program. And you can apply anytime in that 5-year horizon. So if you feel like you might have a project, but it's not ready right now, that's okay. You can apply in 3 years or 5 years. So what we've been doing with that new notice is really trying to ground the program in requirements from the 2025 Explore Act. Everything in that notice comes from our new legislation, and we'll talk more about the specifics as we go. All right. We're going to run through this relatively quickly. Everything here is in the notice of funding opportunity. So if you feel like you missed something, definitely refer to the notice on grants.gov for more information. At the highest level, ORLP has 4 core program goals. So as we mentioned, that big one is increasing access to outdoor recreation opportunities. We also have a couple of others, like projects need to align with community needs. We want to see community engagement. We want to ensure that it's filling a gap a community has identified. Third, all of our projects are about leveraging resources in support of recreation. So that's inherent in our 50-50 matching requirement. Partnership networks are another way of leveraging resources. There are lots of different things that fall into that category. But lastly, all of our projects are aimed at promoting ecological and conservation benefits along with recreation benefits. So those two things don't have to be at odds. We're looking for projects that are combining both to meet our ORLP mission. So those are our high-level program goals. If you feel like you have a project that really meets all of those goals, here's some more information on what we can specifically fund. So our grants are a minimum of $300K to a maximum of $15 million. And that's just for the federal portion. The total project costs can exceed that. We do have that 1-to-1 cost share requirement, as mentioned, and we can fund development, acquisition, or a combination of those two. And in terms of the application process, ORLP only has one hard and fast eligibility requirement, which we will talk about in detail momentarily, but you have to be in an urban area of 25,000 or more, or a tribally administered area. And under our new 5-year NOFO, we have an annual November 1st deadline for national competition. That's just for our NPS deadline. There may be other state level deadlines before November 1st every year that you should be aware of and start planning around as early as possible. We are committing to turning around selections within 6 months. So after November 1st, we're going to be able to give folks an answer as to whether or not they were selected for ORLP by May 1st the following year. All right. I think this map really gets at the core of ORLP, which is set forth in the Explore Act once again, but ORLP is now really truly designed for urban areas and tribes. And this map is showing you all of the urban areas in the United States. All of these red blobs are where we are going to be focusing our efforts moving forward. The blue dots are where we have funded projects. And of course, tribally recognized lands, reservations, all of that are also part of our consideration now that they're directly eligible for ORLP. They're just not on this map. I think this is a great snapshot for you to start considering where ORLP could be a good fit for your community or your state. Couple of other high-level things to be aware of as we get more into the details, but one thing is that LWCF is a pass-through program. So that means that we, the Park Service, give our money to a directly eligible applicant, typically a state or a tribe, who can then pass the money through to a subrecipient, which is often a city or a county. So if you're a city or county, yes, you can definitely apply for ORLP. You're just going to do it through your state. And your state is going to be the one who actually has a formalized grant agreement with the Park Service. Second big thing to be aware of is that we operate through reimbursement. So that means we can't give you all of your project funds up front. You're actually going to be fronting those costs and then getting reimbursed through the period of performance for the grant. And the last one is really big. I know match is often a huge barrier. For ORLP, your matching commitments don't have to be finalized at your time of application. We do need them to be finalized for the grant award, but when you're first applying, we just want to plan for how you're planning on getting your match. You know, we are going to pursue X, Y, and Z federal grants. We are going to be talking to X, Y, and Z philanthropy. It does have to be finalized when we're getting ready to sign the grant agreement. And here are the common sources of match that we see for ORLP. We see state funds. Oftentimes states will have their own matching program for LWCF and ORLP that can be a great fit. City or county funds, whether it's from your regular budget cycle or a special bond or levy, private philanthropy, and then there are some specialized federal funds that can be matched with LWCF and ORLP. There's HUD's Community Development Block Grants, Department of Transportation's Recreational Trails Program. Those two can be used to meet that matching requirement. So that's high level, in a nutshell, ORLP. Everything we're going to be talking about now is helping assess your fit for whether ORLP is a good option for some of your community's projects. And the first way to figure that out is determine if you are in fact eligible. So let's talk about that. As we mentioned earlier, LWCF is a pass-through program. So who is eligible to apply for ORLP? Directly eligible applicants are state and territorial lead agencies, federally recognized tribes, Alaska Native communities or organizations, and Native Hawaiian communities or organizations. Everyone else, cities, counties, special purpose districts, are eligible as subrecipients. So you are going to be applying through one of those directly eligible applicants. And if you've never heard the term state and territorial lead agency, that's okay. That's basically a predetermined agency that you would coordinate with on LWCF. And we have a list of all of those agencies on our nps.gov website. And you can go and look and see exactly who it is. Typically, it's your state parks department, your Department of Conservation. It's different every single state, but that's what we're talking about when we say state lead agency. Are there additional eligibility requirements for ORLP? There's only one hard and fast requirement, and that is that projects must be in a qualifying area. And there are three definitions of a qualifying area. That's this A, B, or C here. So A, qualifying area can be an urban area with a population of 25,000 or more in the most recent census. B, it can be two or more adjacent urban areas that are combining to meet that population threshold. Or C, it can be an area that's administered by a federally recognized tribe, Alaska Native, or Native Hawaiian community or organization. And you just have to meet one of those qualifying area eligibility requirements. It doesn't have to be a mix. It's not all three, just one, A, B, or C. And this is really an expansion of eligibility compared to previous years of ORLP. We now have 800 immediately eligible urban areas across the country. So that's that A option, 800 places. And we have 575 directly eligible federally recognized tribes under that C option. We're going to spend some more time on how you can think through your eligibility under options A and B here. And I'm going to give specific scenarios and cases to help just fill in the contours a bit of how you can interpret this. If you are interested in qualifying under option C, absolutely feel free to get in touch with us through our shared inbox. Anyone at NPS is happy to talk to federally recognized tribes about meeting eligibility and applying for this program. So reach out. Everything we're going to talk about next in terms of meeting a population requirement does not apply to tribes. So tribes, the next 6 or so slides, don't even worry about it. Okay. So I've been throwing out the term urban area. I want to flag that that is a specific thing. It is different from a city or a county. It is its own designation. And the Census Bureau defines urban areas on their urban and rural page. So this is a great place to go as a starting point to learn more about what that urban area definition is. And it's a specific designation based on population and housing density. And this urban and rural page has a comprehensive list of every single urban area in the United States that you can use and filter to see what places are eligible. And that's how I got that 800 number on the previous slide. If you're like me though, and you need a visual, there is a web tool called Tiger that you can use to explore the actual geographic areas of all of these urban areas. And you're just going to go to that web tool, filter it to the urban area layer, and you can type in your proposed project site, see if it's in one of those purple urban areas. And you can see just from this slide, it's the entire Dallas urban area. It's the entire Houston urban area. It is not necessarily correlated or defined by city boundaries. So be sure you're taking a look to see how this applies for your potential project. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. And we're going to use Missoula, Montana. That's where I live. I'm biased, so I just wanted to take a look at how it would play out in my own neighborhood. Let's think through how a project might qualify under scenario A, an urban area with a population of 25,000 or more. So I've went ahead and Tiger, and the Missoula urban area, one, has a population of 80,000 people, so we're good there. It's meeting that population threshold. But it also depends on where your proposed project is. So let's say they are proposing a project here. It's fully in the boundaries of this purple urban area. That is great, eligible for ORLP. Now let's say they're interested in acquiring this parcel of land fully outside of the boundaries of an urban area. Sadly, no. This would not be eligible. Projects have to be in a qualifying urban area. Now let's stretch our minds just a little more. A project is partially in the urban area, partially out of the urban area. Yes, this is still eligible for ORLP. Just some amount of the project site has to be in a qualifying urban area to be eligible. Bingo. This case would also apply. So those are just some very basic examples to start thinking through that option A for eligibility. Now let's talk through option B, which is 2 or more adjacent urban areas combining to meet that population threshold. Now we've traveled thousands of miles. We're putting ourselves in the shoes of Manor, Texas, which is a small town just outside of Austin, population of 17,000 in this urban area. So it alone is not going to qualify for ORLP, but there are a couple ways they could combine with adjacent urban areas to still put in an ORLP project. First, they might just want to combine with the Austin urban area. That's a population of 1.8 million plus 17,000. That's well over the 25K population threshold. That could potentially work. Or they may want to combine with Hornsby Bend, just down the road. That's 11,000 people. And that would still get them over the 25,000 threshold. The thing to really consider about combining urban areas is that there has to be some compelling rationale as to why that project is going to serve both of those urban populations. So let's talk that through a little bit more here. Let's say Manor has a park project that's in the boundaries of the Manor urban area. It's at this yellow arrow here. And it's a larger regional park that they think has amenities that would attract people from the Austin urban area to it. This is a pretty compelling rationale. You can see the Austin urban area directly leads to the Manor, Texas urban area. It seems like people would have access to the site from the Austin urban area, and it's promoting recreation access to both Manor and Austin. This could be a compelling rationale for an ORLP project. Now let's say Hornsby Bend and Manor, Texas have been planning for 5 years and decide, we want a special multi-use trail that's going to connect our two communities that people can bike or walk or do whatever they want on this path between our two urban areas. that is also a pretty compelling rationale for how this project is going to serve these two urban populations. And once again, these are completely theoretical examples. It's case by case, but the core of when you're trying to combine these adjacent urban areas is having some compelling recreation project that's meeting the needs of both of those populations. All right. One other thing to be aware of when it comes to ORLP is low income status. And you'll notice the core goal of this program is to increase recreation access in urban low income areas. We now have a specific definition of low income from the Explore Act that we are building into our process. And low income is not an eligibility requirement for a project. It is considered during the review process. So if you have a project that is in a qualifying urban area, but it's not in or serving a low-income community, that's okay. You can apply. It may not score as highly in our merit review. Just to keep that in mind. And our specific definition of low income now is you have two options, two ways to meet it. Either 20% of people in the census tract are below the poverty line, or the median family income of the tract is below 80% of the surrounding area. And similar to figuring out whether you are in a qualifying urban area, there's a web tool you can use to find out whether your proposed project site is low income. And this is all in the notice of funding, specific instructions on how to do this. But you are going to go to this geomapping tool, put in the project site, and look for these two demographic indicators in the pop-up. Okay. So let's take a collective breath. That was a lot of maps. That was a lot of specific information. Now we're gonna come back out a little bit and talk more about, okay, great. I think this project site is, yes, eligible for ORLP. How can I put my best foot forward in developing an application? And I like to start this conversation with a general awareness of the overall timeline for ORLP, because we know that's one of the big factors of fit is how quickly you're going to need money, and federal grants take time. So it may not be a viable timeline for every single project you have, but it could be worthwhile for certain ones. So let's talk through the timeline. First step of an ORLP project is to submit to your state lead agency or your tribe, depending on how you are applying for the program. They may have their own application deadline, their own review process, and weed out folks or applications that they think aren't ready for national competition. It's their whole own part of the process. So definitely get in touch with your state lead agency as soon as possible to learn about what's expected there. In general, can budget around 3 months for that first step. Once states and tribes submit to our notice of funding every November 1st on grants.gov, it'll take 6 months for us to turn around our selections. So May 1st every year, we will announce who our next crop of ORLP selected projects are. Really important thing to note is that selection does not equal award. You're not going to be selected and then get your money the following Monday once the banks open. This is when you start the process of finalizing all of your award documentation. So you're going to complete federal compliance requirements. You're going to fill out LWCF specific forms. All of that can take up to a year. At the end of that year, once you have a completed package, boom, you have your finalized grant agreement in hand, and then you can begin receiving reimbursements for your project. Typical period of performance for our projects is 3 years. Some can go faster, some can take a little bit longer. So generally we say 2 to 5 years to actually execute the project once it has been awarded. And then woohoo, you have your finished park. Your community can come and enjoy it. So this can be a lot. You can see there are a lot of steps. Our goal at the Park Service is exactly the same as yours, which is to turn your projects into a reality. And we're here to help you through every single step on this timeline. All right. I have a project. I feel like I can navigate the timeline. It's going to be great. How are projects actually evaluated in that Park Service national competition? First things first, we, the Park Service, aren't the ones scoring these applications. We use external merit review panelists, and we try to get, a dream team of people with completely complementary areas of expertise, whether it's landscape architecture, public health, parks and rec management, you name it. We get our dream team together and they look through all of these proposals and score them based on our set merit review criteria, which is a scale from 1 to 5. Everything we score on is public in our notice of funding opportunity. And we have 5 criteria, which are directly from our program goals. So 1, how well does this project increase access to outdoor recreation opportunities? 2, how well does this project align with community needs? 3, how are they leveraging resources in support of recreation? 4, how are they promoting conservation and ecological benefits? And then 5, is the project feasible? And that's just high level. Does the budget look like it aligns with the proposed project narrative? Is it completely pie in the sky? Just does it seem like it can be implemented successfully? So that's what our reviewers are looking at when they're scoring all of these applications. And let's take a closer look at what the criteria actually look like in the NOFO. So this is pulled verbatim, criterion 1 in our notice of funding opportunity. And if you were to focus your energy on one particular section of our notice of funding opportunity, and I know you all are excellent students and are going to spend time with all 30 pages of the NOFO, but if you were to focus your energy on one, make it the merit review area, because that's where we are telling you how to have an effective proposal. And this is what this section looks like. So the bullet points up top are priorities that are pulled directly from the Explore Act and our Secretary of Interior priorities. So we just say, to what extent does this project support all of these priorities? Where the rubber really meets the road, though, is in this scoring guideline section. So this is what our merit reviewers are using to help figure out how they're going to score something that's a 1 versus a 5. And you can see it's pretty broad. We give the general guidelines of what we think would be a 5, but we're not being prescriptive on how you meet that definition. So a 5 project will significantly improve or create outdoor recreation access in a qualified area. There's strong evidence that it is filling a critical recreation access gap, particularly in a low-income area. And then you all have the flexibility to write a project narrative in a way that really makes sense for your particular project circumstances while meeting this brief. So that's what you'll see in our NOFO, and it's the same exact format for all 5 criteria. Definitely go through and get a sense of each one. And then high level, just some general application best practices as you are thinking through how to structure it, thinking through how to write it. These are my big 3. And for all of them, I would really put yourselves in the shoes of one of our merit reviewers who may be looking at, 3 to 6 applications every single time. So the more you can do to make it concise, compelling, clear, the better. And that applies across all of these best practices. But number 1, keep your narrative focused and concise. So make sure you're addressing all parts of what we're asking for in the notice of funding opportunity. And we give specific bullet points of information that we need. Make sure you're meeting all of those bullet points. That way there's no question in a merit reviewer's mind as to why something was left out. Don't let them fill in the blanks. Don't leave any blanks. So, and only include information that is relevant to the project and its context. Oftentimes I think people assume more is better, that it demonstrates, breadth of understanding or something along those lines. Really, the clearer and more concise you can be, the higher impact you will probably have on our merit reviewers, who once again are looking through a lot of applications. So if you can get really clear on what your thesis statement is for a project, that's going to be able to stick in their minds much better than a wash of information with no clear thread. Best practice number 2 is to align your project components with community needs and priorities. We really want to hear about your community engagement process. What did you do? How many surveys? How many meetings? Who did you talk to? All of that can paint a really clear picture that you did really effective community engagement and that this project is responsive to that community engagement and the results that you saw. So tell us 1, community engagement you did, 2, how the project is now tailored to the results from that community engagement. And if you can specify how the project benefits the community specifically, that is going to be very compelling. And the last best practice is really make sure you are quantifying and providing evidence wherever possible. The more you can use data, trends, gaps, opportunities, and show how the project fills one of these areas, the more compelling it will be. And it really just helps reinforce your overall argument. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There are a lot of existing tools like Trust for Public Lands ParkServe that can help you compile some really great pieces of evidence quickly without having to, hire a specialized analyst to figure it out. So just look for those sources that may already be out there to help get some data on why this is a great project. So those are my big 3. We're going to walk through a couple of examples of each one, and these are actually text pulled from previous ORLP applications. Keep in mind these are from our previous NOFO, so things are going to look different moving forward, but I think it's helpful to see how other people exemplified these big 3 traits. So here's one really focused and concise narrative. I'll let you read through on your own a bit, and I've highlighted the areas that jumped out to me as them doing a great job. So for one, they are demonstrating that this project aligns with community, city, and state priorities. This isn't just a local thing. This is aligning with our state's SCORP. This is aligning with a national secretarial priority, whatever it may be. If you can demonstrate that you're meeting priorities on multiple levels right off the bat in your narrative, that's going to be great. Additionally, this initial narrative, and this was, the first or second paragraph in their overall project narrative, they pulled out what the key merit review criteria were and just put in right off the bat, here's how this project addresses all of the criteria. Fantastic. Now a merit reviewer, you're signposting for the merit reviewer for what's to come in the rest of the narrative and the rest of the project documentation. And this seems simple, but I think it's something that can often get lost. Just make sure you're giving people a nutshell. What is the basic elements of the project that someone will have in their mind. If they're reading 6 applications, they'll be like, was that also a splash pad project? I don't remember. If you can just give them a sentence to say, here's in a nutshell what this project is about, that's great. Then they'll have it and can refer back to it easily. For best practice number 2, align your project elements with community needs and priorities. This was a fantastic example from an application that went into great detail about their community engagement process and how it then informed the overall project proposal. So you can see they're quantifying how many stakeholder engagements they had. They are describing what came out of those engagements. And there we go. Really articulating how the community engagement informed the overall project design and implementation. So it's not just, oh yeah, we did it. It was great. It's, we did it. Here was the feedback loop between the engagement and our proposed project. And this is a big one. It clearly addresses how the project benefits the community. So what is the gap that this project is filling for the community? Why is it important? It's not enough to just say, woo, we're going to have a playground. Why is that playground a good fit for this community in particular? All right. And then the last one, this is a fantastic example from an applicant that was able to really quantify and provide evidence on visitation. And these highlighted sections will give you a sense, but they use data to really illustrate a compelling narrative, which is that visitation has been declining at this park site, 47% over the past 5 years. So they're not just throwing out numbers to make it seem like they've done data analysis. They are using their data to really have a narrative. And then with that narrative, they can say we were declining 47% over the past 5 years. This particular park with these particular amenities are going to increase visitation, and we have the evidence to prove it. So this is just another great example you can use. All right, so those are some best practices to keep in mind. Once again, quick information. I'm sure there are a million questions and you want to know where to go if you have more after today. These are all of our technical assistance opportunities for ORLP. So we have self-serve resources on our nps.gov site, on our partner websites with CPA and the Trust for Public Land. We've had a whole slew of live events that have been recorded, so you can check those out as well. And then new this year, the Trust for Public Land is offering one-on-one application support. So if you feel like you really want to sit down with someone to talk through how to do a budget, how to do a project narrative, visit the Trust for Public Lands website and indicate you're interested in getting that tailored support. And I'll leave us with this, which is just some high-level next steps. Check out grants.gov if you feel like you're not quite ready and don't know much about federal grants. That's a great starting point. If you're interested in ORLP, first starting conversation should always be with your state lead agency. They are there to help. Definitely make sure you're connecting with them early and often. And if you're ready to go on an application this cycle, read our notice of funding, connect with your state lead agency, and feel free to reach out for technical support from our partners as well. And I'll put up our inbox, shared inbox. If you want questions, feel free to submit them here, and our website link. And I'm sure we have plenty of cues to get through. So I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa, for that informative presentation. It is great to see that cities with smaller populations can combine with another city to apply, and always good to see the many funding options a city can use to provide the match. We are now going to start the question and answer period, and I see that the National Park Service has done an amazing job answering many of the questions in the Q&A. Remember, if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A, and we will try to answer as many as we can. I'm just going to start. There was a lot of questions about nonprofits, and it's a confusing one because these projects have to be put in perpetuity. And so I'm just going to throw it out. Vanessa, can nonprofits apply for an ORLP grant?
So nonprofits cannot apply directly for an ORLP grant. You can't be a subrecipient as a nonprofit. You can't be a direct applicant as a nonprofit. That does not mean nonprofits can't be involved in any ORLP application. Quite the contrary. We love to see nonprofits as partners on proposed projects because we know nonprofits can be really inherent to a project's long-term success. So even if you can't apply and you need to partner with your city or your tribe or whoever it may be, you can absolutely be involved in an ORLP project, even if it's not as an applicant.
Great, thanks. And there was also a lot of questions, and I know that you went over it, but it still is a little confusing on the boundary issue with urban areas. Do boundaries not have to be shared, or do they have to be within a certain distance of each other?
So the Explore Act gave us no definition of the and we're keeping it broad. So there's no, it has to be within 5 miles or anything like that. If you are trying to combine two urban areas, it's really going to come down to the rationale. So like, what is the compelling reason why you are combining? And then it's going to be case by case consideration on that. So it doesn't have to be directly touching. It doesn't have to be within 0.5 miles. It's really case by case. And if you want to talk that through more with your state or with Park Service, feel free to reach out because we're figuring it out along with you all. Yeah.
Great. And this is an interesting one on the same sort of line. Is if one city is in one state and a neighboring city is in another state, is that fine?
See, that's an
Same.
interesting one. And it's
Yeah.
tough to answer specifically about hypotheticals. I think there's nothing that precludes it. There may be special considerations if you are trying to apply for two states potentially. So that's a case where it would probably be good to reach out to your state early and they can connect with us, the Park Service, on the mechanics of how that would work. But
Great.
once again, nothing explicitly precludes that from happening.
Great. You went through all of the goals that have to be met, both recreation as well as ecological goals. Do they all have to be met?
Technically, no. A compelling project proposal is going to meet our program goals, right? So we give you those merit review criteria so you can see what would be a really strong ORLP project. And it's broad enough that I imagine you can make a case for how a project meets all of those goals. So short answer is technically no, but a good project will be able to articulate how it meets all of our project goals, or excuse me, program goals.
Great. Does the 3-year clock start upon selection or award?
I think this is referring to period of performance, and that starts once you have that signed grant agreement.
Great.
And there may be cases where there needs to be an extension, but 3 is our default period of performance.
Great. Does the recreation have to be totally free? We have a park project where the park is free, but the zoo portion would charge a small fee for attendees. Is that acceptable?
So now we're getting into some
Yeah.
specifics. So it's going to depend on the boundaries of your project. There are many LWCF projects where part of the park is free, part of it is what you're describing as you. In general, there has to be public recreation access. And we can get into a specific case like that if you want to ask your state preliminarily and then come to us and we can talk more details.
Great. And this was a question that was asked a lot at our Greater and Greener conference. We already applied through our state for LWCF funds for our match due at the end of this month. Are we still able to apply for ORLP as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, we've had ORLP projects that got LWCF funding a few years back, and now they're doing a bigger scope and want another grant. So yes, you can apply if you have previously received ORLP or LWCF.
Great. I can't find anything in the details of the NOFO about design costs for a trail construction project. Are those eligible for reimbursement, or can we count those towards part of the local match?
So that is potentially an eligible pre-award cost, is what it's called, and you could potentially be reimbursed for it. I think the important thing to know when it comes to pre-award costs, which is any work you're doing for a project before you actually have a signed grant agreement in hand. That's what pre-award costs refers to. They're not guaranteed. So NPS treats those on a case-by-case basis. They have to align with federal regulations. So just keep that in mind, that there is some amount of risk involved if you're incurring program costs before the actual grant agreement is signed, but it is possible.
Great. There's some questions about multi-phase projects. For a multi-phase project where we may have funds committed to phase one, can this funding be applied to phase two and the funding from phase one be applied and acknowledged as the 50-50 match? I'm glad I don't have to answer that one.
I do though, Julie. I am going to be honest, I don't know the
Tricky
answer to
one.
that one off the bat, and I think this is I don't know the answer to that one
Yeah.
off the bat. We can look into it.
Yeah. Start with your LWCF officer and then email NPS at the general inquiry. Email. If our SCORP term has lapsed, is it still relevant in this process?
Yes, so if your state's SCORP has expired, theoretically, your state is already working on their next SCORP. I would connect with your state on what's happening in their interim, whether they're just extending their existing SCORP, and you can refer to that for at least this one application. Definitely connect with your state to see how that specific case should be handled.
Great. And I don't know if you would have this answer if you've done this analysis at NPS, but in recent funding rounds, have acquisition projects or development projects tend to be more competitive, or are they generally evaluated equally?
Yeah, so we've funded both. A project comes to mind in Asheville, North Carolina, that was a straight acquisition project, almost 300 acres. And then we do lots of urban area park development projects. It really just depends on, once again, how that project aligns with our program goals, how it's aligning with community needs, and how you can make that case. So it's not that we're necessarily weighting one higher than the other. It's more a holistic examination of how that project is meeting all of those criteria.
Great. Here is a tribal question. We are a federally recognized tribe in rural Alaska. Given that we're so unique from the 25K plus urban communities, how will we be weighed relative to the rest of the applicant pool while also recognizing that there isn't a separate award pool for tribal applicants?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And that's why we broadened our merit review criteria to try and keep it as general as possible so that you all can characterize the project and write about the project in a way that makes sense for your community. So definitely take a look at those criteria and just think about how they apply to your particular community needs and project. But the expectation is not that you are, an urban area with a population of more than 25,000. We now have a lot more flexibility under the Explore Act to fund things that are, Native American cultural gathering sites. Like there is this dual mission that I think very much aligns with your community. So it's all about making the case. And we're happy to talk more about that too, if you want to email our ORLP inquiries box.
Great. There's a lot of questions about how advanced a design needs to be a part of the application.
Yeah, so we don't have a specific requirement. We don't say, you have to have 60% design done or anything like that. I think it is a balancing act between how much of a picture you're able to paint for our merit reviewers versus how much work you're able to do ahead of time. So if you're able to provide a map that, demonstrates what the amenities are going to be, has a clear idea for the project site, that's really what we're looking for at this stage. We don't need you to have, the water line is going here and this is all the specific things that are going to happen. So there's no minimum requirement, but you may want to consider what is best to really give the character of the proposed project.
Great. Here's a community engagement question. Can engagement activities conducted prior to the grant award become eligible for reimbursement?
Yep, so that's one of those potentially eligible pre-award costs. Same with design. Same considerations apply that you're not guaranteed for reimbursement, but it is potentially eligible.
Great. I don't think this would apply to DOI because it's OMB, but you probably are aware of this. A proposed rule released by the Office of Management and Budget in May 2026 revises federal grant regulations to prohibit institutions that receive federal funding from using grants to fund or promote DEI initiatives. Would this grant fall under that umbrella?
So if you read our notice of funding opportunity, there is a clause in there that all funded grants have to align with executive orders and secretarial orders. And that would include any orders on DEI, so on and so forth. So yes, is all I can say about that.
Yeah, yeah. Here's one on multiple fitness equipment. We are organizing a citywide network of outdoor fitness parks in an eligible area. Could we apply for support for multiple locations under one grant application, or will we need to submit one per site? It's a tricky one.
I believe you can apply for multiple sites. I think it may be complicated, and there are things you might want to consider and talk about with your state as to whether that's the best approach in the long run. But I think it is technically possible to fund multiple sites. That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Can you clarify that one if I'm off base?
And this one is about deadlines. Can we apply for a grant for a project that we would need to start before May 1? And then can we apply for reimbursements prior to the May 1 date?
Great question. Common question we get. So any grant we're funding has to meet federal compliance requirements. And you cannot break ground on a project site if you are going to be using our federal grant money. So no. If you want ORLP money, you're going to have to wait, meet all of those federal compliance requirements, consult with your tribes, make sure it is good to go, and then you can begin implementing and constructing once you
Great.
have that signed grant agreement.
Thanks, Vanessa. It is 1:58, and in the interest of time, that was our last question. Remember, you can email NPS at that general inquiries email, and you can also, and I would highly recommend contacting your state LWCF officer. And just a reminder, you have the November 1 deadline from NPS, but there are some states that have really short application turnarounds, particularly California. Literally, I think California is like a month. So just make sure you know the state is applying on behalf of you. So you have to figure out what your state deadline is. So just a reminder, lots of questions about this. A recording of today's webinar will be available by the end of the week, along with the presentation. And also for additional ORLP resources, you may visit City Parks Alliance's ORLP website page. You can find that page through our homepage advocacy tab. And on that page, you can find all 7 award rounds, examples of successful ORLP projects, locate your state LWCF officers, and read our reports demonstrating how the ORLP program is a smart investment in park projects across the country. Remember, if you are not applicable for an ORLP grant, then an LWCF state formula grant might be a great option. We do ask you that, I have a few more things to say, but I wanted to get this in, that you please fill out our survey. We always want to know what you think of our webinars. We hope that this has been helpful. So that will pop up right at the end of this. And just to save the date, City Parks Alliance will be hosting a webinar in late August about public safety and security in parks. Registration will open soon. Please check back to City Parks Alliance/webinars and keep your eye out on your inbox for more information. And then again, if you're interested in continuing education credits for AICP or City Parks Alliance's general CEU offering, look for a follow-up email in the next 2 days with instructions on how to claim your credits. A big thanks to Vanessa for presenting today. We hope that this webinar has been helpful. And last but not least, many thanks to all of you for joining us today. Keep up the great work you're doing for our nation's urban parks. Thank you.